All right, 1971. Here we go. One more year after this, and then I'll be done. So, 1971, big year for vampire flicks, big year for Argento, and especially a big year for Giallos, or Gialli, whatever. So, yeah, a year that I wasn't too familiar with before this. I saw about half a dozen movies from 1971 before this preparation for this ranking. I've seen 44 movies now, and I'm going to give you my top 10 and my 3 honorable mentions and 3 dishonorable mentions, and at the end I will shout out some more movies that are worth a watch. So we're going to start with the dishonorable mentions. My first dishonorable mention will be Octaman, a horrendously awful creature feature with the most ridiculous, fake-looking monster that's half man, half octopus. The dialogue and the acting in this movie are both equally bad, but it at least has some good lighting. It's got that going for it, but maybe it would benefit having bad lighting so that you couldn't see just how fake this monster looks. It looks like a man in a rubber suit with little suction cups glued on. They randomly cut to this creature numerous times in the movie to like close-up shots of its face and its feet walking around in broad daylight. And there's like no movement whatsoever in the face. It just has one permanent expression. There's no like mouth moving, eyes, looking around, and like no movement whatsoever. The music sounded pretty old school, like a 50s creature feature. And at one point they say it's going to take more than a couple of guns and bullets to defeat this thing, and then that's exactly how they end up killing it. Second dishonorable mention will go to a movie called The Touch of Satan, a devil possession witch love story that's so forced with some really bad unnatural dialogue and dreadful character writing. Any man with half a brain would have left this crazy farm on night 1. The script is just so lazy and it has absolutely nothing scary or visually interesting or creepy to offer. The old lady makeup was decent, but that's about it when it comes to positives. Being possessed by the devil in this one makes you immortal and prevents you from aging. Why is it that the great-grandmother is homicidal all of a sudden, and how long has she been killing? You would think it would be the granddaughter who's crazy, seeing as how she's the one that's supposed to be possessed by the devil. And why is it that the devil is a female voice to one person, and then somebody else later on hears the devil and it's a man voice? It's just a poorly written love story at the end of the day, with no thrills and just 2 kills that aren't gory. Final dishonorable mention will go to The Velvet Vampire, a low-budget exploitation vampire movie with acting shitty enough to make you want to throw yourself off a cliff with the director for making such a pile of shit. This is a movie where I just checked out early on for multiple reasons. A, you can't see shit. The lighting is so poor, even in broad daylight scenes like outside and public venues. If the characters weren't wearing bright colors, you wouldn't even notice them. B, the acting is so abysmal you wish you were deaf. C, the dialogue is atrocious. D, the annoying score and screams and the repeated dreams on a bed in the desert that are supposed to be like symbolic and add some kind of artsy layer to the film that thinks it's so fucking smart and has something to say, but it's just bullshit. This movie has really nothing to say in its 80 2-hour-long feeling minutes, but I have something to say, and that's fuck this movie for wasting my time. Alright, number 10 will be a much better vampire movie than the one I was just talking about, and that is The Shiver of the Vampires. Probably my favorite movie from this overrated French director, Jean Rollin, who's known for making exploitation erotic horror films like this. This one's chock full of nudity. No female character in this film is not seen naked. It really is gratuitous to the point of hilarity. The atmosphere of the castle grounds is tremendous. I thought the cinematography was gorgeous. I loved the use of colors in this. The film slowly gets funnier and funnier, and I'm not entirely sure if it was intentional. The score is unconventional. It's mainly consistent of like electric guitar riffs. The problem with this movie though, and with a lot of movies from this director that I just don't like, is that this guy just does not know how to edit his films down. He just lets shots linger on for way too long. The second act does drag a bit with a few scenes that are just way too dialogue heavy. And the writing can feel a bit contrived and unbelievable at times. Like, why this guy stays as long as he does and doesn't seem disturbed by flying books and witnessing human sacrifices is just baffling. And this moron just keeps constantly like blind firing, which is a pet peeve of mine, just wasting all this ammunition. Like, where is he getting all this ammo, and why did he bring a gun on his honeymoon? But there is one interesting kill in this movie where a woman has like a sharp, pointy bra on, and then she hugs another woman and stabs her tits with her tits. So that was actually pretty memorable. Number 9, we'll go to another vampire movie, and that is Twins of Evil. Another Cushing vampire movie, but with magnificent atmosphere and excellent cinematography. There are some day for night shots, though, which always kind of takes me out of the movie, and the characters aren't as developed as I would have liked, but the third act pays off greatly. It gets more violent than I was expecting, and there is a shocking, quick decapitation that looked amazing. Cushing plays a very despicable religious nut who is like the leader of this brotherhood group. They always go out and seek a woman to burn alive and accuse them of doing shit that they're not doing. So you just hate his guts. One thing they threw in here that I thought was absolutely absurd and not necessary is when one twin feels pain, the other one can feel it too from far away and like can sense when her twin sister is in trouble and is being stabbed or whatever. There's a goofy moment during a sex scene where a woman grabs a candle and starts stroking it like a dick, but the rest of the movie is played straight. Although there's also a funny, like out of nowhere bitch slap on Frida from the Count. It just came out of nowhere. I'm so confused why he did that. One thing I seriously question is why the one twin was not speaking up about the fact that there was a switcheroo, like they switched the good twin for the bad twin, and they're about to burn the good twin alive, and she just won't fucking say, like, you got the wrong one. Like, when your life is on the line and you're about to be burned alive, you would think you would speak for yourself and tell them the truth. The story here is nothing really original. It's typical vampire stuff, but it's the atmosphere, the visual style, the aesthetics, that's what makes it worth a watch. Plus, the twins are gorgeous, and you get to see one of them naked. Number 8, we'll go to a Giallo that I just reviewed recently for a Patreon from a very popular Italian director, and that is The Cat of Nine Tails. A Giallo by Argento with his signature stylish camera work and sets that use a lot of red, I noticed this time. The movie looks great, and Ennio Morricone composes the score, and it's quite beautiful, it's nice, and also slightly creepy. The main character in this is a blind man. That seems to be a trope in Italian movies. There's always someone with a disability. There's some good humorous moments in this, and some quirky side characters, like the barber who's talking about slitting throats and how he could kill you if he wanted, and the one cop always talking about his wife's recipe and no one cares, and the guy who's like an expert at picking locks and he's got like a plethora of tools inside his coat. The way Argento chose to shoot the train kill was just excellent and unique, seeing a close-up of the actual actor's head making impact with the train and then cutting to a dummy rolling underneath the wheels. It was pretty awesome. But the other kills in this movie are generic strangulations, and they're not very stylish. They're not Argento-like in his pictures later on. And the pacing is a bit sluggish, and the movie's almost 2 hours long, which is a little unusual for this type of film. Usually these movies run 90 to 100 minutes, but this one's pushing 2 hours. And I took issue with how often the killer just seemed to be at the right place at the right time. He seemed to know when people were about to find a clue and discover something. He was just always right there. And this movie has a trope I can't stand where someone has important information and they're on the phone with someone and they could just tell them right then and there, but they have to set up a date later on where they can tell them that information, but you know they're going to die before they even get there. So just fucking spit it out on the phone. But overall, it's a very well shot movie with excellent characters, some good humor, and the killer was not predictable, at least for me. And shout out to Jeanette Spivak, who chose this as her favorite movie of 1971. Number 7 will go to a Vincent Price movie, and that is the Abominable Dr. Phibes. A Vincent Price British revenge tale with elaborate biblical plague-themed kills and turns into Saw 3 at the end. The makeup on Vincent Price's disfigured, almost skeletal-looking face was pretty cool, and I liked how he spoke through like speakers, like Gabriel in *Malignant*. There's two very interesting kills that are the highlights to me, and that's the frog mask tightening on the guy's skull kill and the spear being like catapulted across the room and impaling the guy out of nowhere. That was a cool kill as well. The set design of Phibes' home is pretty grand and fancy and terrific. It's odd that Dr. Phibes has like this like robotic, almost like Chuck E. Cheese band that plays music for him. It's pretty odd, and also they were creepy looking. I feel like this movie doesn't make it clear enough who this woman is helping out Dr. Phibes and where she came from. She's mute, and I had to like look it up to find out who exactly she was. I would have actually liked this movie to start with Dr. Phibes and his wife like alive and see how they were like, what their relationship was like, get to know them, and then have the wife die, and then start the revenge. This movie just starts with the revenge, and then like later on you find out that his wife died, and that's why he's so pissed off. I found it a little unbelievable that this woman in one scene is like sleeping through shit falling on her bed and on her face from the ceiling, and then she like never screams in pain when there's like acid falling on her face. They just walk in and see her dead, and they never heard a thing. Like, that's bullshit. But Vincent Price is the reason to watch this movie, and the set designs were pretty cool, like I said, and there's some interesting kills. Number 6 will go to a Mario Bava film that I've reviewed before, and that is A Bay of Blood. A unique proto-slasher with great kills, a catchy Italian soundtrack, but is poorly paced in the middle. It seemed like Mario Bava was really experimenting with the camera zooms and rack focusing. There's quite a bit of that in this one. The two young couples that arrive in the yellow car are simply cannon fodder, and while I like their demises, the Friday the 13th Part 2 spear kill, double impalement, I like the way they die, but they're kind of boring and they slow down the movie. There's some gratuitous skinny dipping and some really bad dead acting where you can clearly see them breathing heavy as they're lying there dead. I love the opening and the ending. I think they're both just wonderful for different reasons. There's some great atmosphere, some good cinematography, but a few uncalled for day for night shots that were just jarring. There needed to be more music in this, like suspenseful music during certain scenes to build up the suspense and get rid of some of the dead air. While the kills are pretty cool, some of the effects are kind of hit and miss. And how is it that this guy had like boiling hot water thrown on his face and then seemed perfectly fine after that? Like his face would have been fucked up. I love that this is like a slasher where it's not even a whodunit. It pretends like it's a whodunit at first, but then they show you who the killer is, and then that killer gets killed, and then it's just everyone killing each other throughout the rest of the movie. Shout out to Mikey and Horror House, who chose this as their favorite of 71. Number 5 will go to the, I guess, prequel, sort of, to Ben, and that is Willard, a killer pack of rats movie that doesn't turn into a horror movie until, like, the third act. Bruce Davison and Ernest Borgnine are both great in this. Ernest does a terrific job playing the greedy, mean boss, and Bruce Davison is good playing the, like, awkward, introverted son with the sick mother who's constantly babying him and handing out chores. I thought it was very well directed and put together. It's a bit of a stretch in some moments, like how fast these rats can like run up the staircase and how they're like reaching high places so quickly. They don't do much with the love interest Joan, which I'm fine with. I feel like it just would have slowed down the movie and felt forced. There's a scene where one of the rats gets brutally killed and it looked pretty real. I wouldn't be shocked if they actually killed some of these rats. back in 1971. One thing that would have made this movie a little bit better and it would have been higher up is if they just would have did more pranks. If Willard would have did more pranks with the rats, like when he crashes his boss's party, just lets them loose, like more stuff like that, or more kills even in the second act. It just takes a while to get going and turn into a revenge horror movie. Number 4, we'll go to another Giallo, and that is The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. A much less sleazy Giallo mystery thriller by Sergio Martino that kept me intrigued from beginning to end. This movie starts with a hilarious miniature airplane exploding, and it couldn't be more obvious that it's just like a toy airplane they're blowing up on set. There's some interesting camera work, and it seems like J&B sponsored the film because a bottle just seems to show up in almost every shot. You get a cool, quick gore shot of a broken bottle, I wonder if it was J&B, being shoved into a guy's eyeball, and you get a couple of other gruesome, like, guttings. I wasn't really crazy about the mask. It's not even really a mask. It's like pantyhose wrapped around the person's face. I really enjoyed the relationship between Peter, the, like, insurance fraud investigator, and the journalist, and the somewhat witty banter between Peter and like the inspector. The reveal actually surprised me. There's a lot of red herrings, and I like that they keep it a mystery as to whether or not the husband was ever on that plane in the open. I thought there was good suspense, some good fight sequences, and finally no damn fake dummy being used to throw off a cliff or a rooftop like in all these other movies. I liked the music over the opening credits, but after that, there's not much else music wise after. There's hardly a soundtrack to the movie. It's a great Giallo, and it's hands down my new favorite Sergio Martino movie. Number 3, going from one Giallo to another, Death Walks on High Heels. A super engaging Giallo with the funniest detective duo, one brutal kill, and tons of Italian slap fights. This movie makes an interesting turn, like 50 minutes in, and it just keeps you guessing and fully invested in the story. The humor was nicely done. I had a couple of chuckles, and it's unusual for a Giallo. These are usually mostly serious movies and dark, but this one had some levity. It's a well-shot and well-paced movie for a 105-minute long Giallo. The opening kill on the train could have been a lot better. The effects there just weren't great, but the effects in the kill later on were awesome. The killer's identity is revealed in a pretty funny way, and there's also a couple of other small, surprising reveals in the third act as well. This was a second-time watch. I really enjoyed it just as much, if not more, the second time. The only thing that keeps this movie down is it has a really low body count. I wish there could have been just 1 or 2 more kills, a little bit more suspense. It's a little low on that too. And there's just not really a lot of like stalking and POV like you get in some of these other Giallos. But it's entertaining with great characters, and it never gets like too convoluted or ridiculous like some of the others. Number 2 will go to Duel, a suspenseful cat and mouse chase road horror movie made for TV by Steven Spielberg. Dennis Weaver is fantastic, and his character has far more patience than I do. His character in this is very passive, is afraid of confrontation, and of course by the end has an arc where he finally has had enough of this shit and starts fighting the truck back. This movie kind of reminded me of Psycho with all like the fake conversations he was having in his head. We get to hear his thoughts. He's thinking of all these potential conversations he could be having with some of these dudes at the bar, and even the music felt very Psycho. I honestly could have done without the school bus scene. That felt like a scene they threw in just to extend the runtime, and I just hated those snot-nosed fucking kids and antagonizing him as he's trying to help them. The movie can feel pretty repetitious, and one nitpick I have is that the truck should have blown up at the end. Like the shark in Jaws. It says flammable on the side, and they keep showing that, and you think it's foreshadowing what's to come, and nope, it never blows up. It's very well shot and edited, but I did notice a few camera shadows and a cameo by Steven Spielberg in a phone booth reflection. You know, I almost wish at the end of the movie that the truck driver, who we never see, would have actually been seen. Like if he just would have jumped out of the truck at the very end and we had like an actual like fist fight between Dennis Weaver and the truck driver, because this truck driver needed his ass kicked before dying, if you ask me. And shout outs to Chongo Chalupa and the Eagles Getaway, who chose this as their favorite of 71. Now, before we get to my number one, let's go over 3 honorable mentions. And the first one will be another Giallo-like movie, and that is The Bloodstained Butterfly. A very unique Giallo that plays out like a courtroom drama and focuses more heavily on the forensics and investigation side of things. A couple issues I have with the movie is some of the pacing. There's some sequences that go on a bit too long, and the 3 kills in this movie are off camera, and there's no like good suspense build up to them. The mellow, somewhat synth sounding piano score was nice, and the detective character had a couple of funny characteristic traits. This movie opens up with a quote that seems irrelevant by the end. It's about like the past, present, and future. I didn't write down what it said, but it didn't make sense by the end. The second honorable mention will go to Countess Dracula, a movie with a deceiving title that's about Elizabeth Bathory killing virgins to stay young. This has a great production value. It's a period piece, and the set dressings are pretty accurate to the time. The writing is really good, and the performances also. There's a very likable, clever side character named Fabio. One issue I took with the movie is that there's a girl who's being like held prisoner by this mute, and they don't do a good enough job making it believable that it's like impossible to escape. He's always leaving the house. She has so many like opportunities to leave or grab a weapon. She's just terrible at trying to escape. And also, when you really think about it, what's the point in keeping her there? Why not just kill her? Why is Countess Dracula and Elizabeth Bathory hiring this mute to kidnap her? When, like, just kill her. This movie's PG, so the kills are all like off camera, or a little bit of blood will splash up on the camera. But there is some nudity. The fact that Toth proposes on like the second date to this girl is ridiculous in today's standards. Like no one does that today, but this is a period piece, so that was just of the time. Like people just proposed the minute they met. It's pretty funny when you're watching these older movies. They meet, they're like, oh hey, what's your name? Cool, you want to get married? Like it's so quick. Another complaint I have is that the ending does feel a bit rushed, and I would have liked to actually see the execution. Final honorable mention will go to yet another Giallo, and that is The Black Belly of the Tarantula. An Italian Giallo where the killer paralyzes his victims with a needle to the neck and guts them. Ennio Morricone does the score, and he has like this seductive theme music that plays a bit too much in it, but I love how the music like intensifies more and more, like getting louder and louder before each kill. You actually get some gruesome close-up shots of a knife like slowly carving up a woman's stomach a few times. I enjoyed the chemistry between the lead detective, who's new to the job and doesn't feel like he's really cut out for it, and his adorable wife. For once in a movie, a woman faints from shock, and it actually saves her life. The lovely Barbara Boucher is in this, a very small role in the beginning. And of course, I believe we see her naked, and many others. I like that they threw in a few humorous moments in here, like the sex tape being shown to all his like co-workers, and that like woman with the mustache at the spa. My issues with the movie is some of the like inconsistent camera work and the like amount of blurry out of focus shots. And also the killer starts to become much more obvious by the like beginning of the third act, and there's not many red herrings presented to you. Alright, so my number one movie of 1971, a first time watch, and I think one of the first movies I watched in preparation for this video ranking, and that is The Devils. A truly messed up and controversial film with a phenomenal performance by Oliver Reed. The visuals and sets are amazing with just beautiful shots, just very well thought out like camera work. The dialogue is terrific, captivating, and just very smartly written with bizarre characters. The open can be off-putting. It made me worried at first that this whole movie was going to be like a musical, but luckily it wasn't. This has some really surprising moments that just had me laughing out loud. Some truly weird shit, like the king shooting these people dressed up like birds, like they're flying discs in the air. The only thing I can really complain about is that I wasn't really invested in Grandier's relationship with Madeline. This has a lot of naked nuns saying and doing very obscene things, and so that's why it's pretty controversial. Lots of nudity. I liked how Oliver Reed's character met his end, and I just think his performance is like Oscar worthy in this. I just fucking loved it. It's a very unique, awesome movie that just blew me away. Was not expecting to love it as much as I did, and it is my number one of 1971. All right, time to hand out some participation trophies to movies that were okay but just weren't good enough to make my top 10. Movies that are worth a watch, at least in my opinion. And we'll start off with the first one being The Strange Vice of Mrs. Wardh. When Mrs. Wardh begins receiving blackmail letters attributed to a mysterious serial killer, she suspects her cruel and sadistic former lover, John, is behind them. Revenge. A pub owner and his buddy beat up a suspected rapist/killer and leave him for dead in the cellar. A lizard in a woman's skin. A woman tormented by strange drug-induced hallucinations finds her fantasies giving way to violent reality. The night Evelyn came out of the grave. A wealthy English lord is suffering a mental breakdown following the death of his red-headed wife Evelyn, whom he feared was cheating on him. 4 Flies on Grey Velvet. A rock musician becomes entangled in a gruesome murder case. Someone is killing all his friends and trying to frame him for the murders. The Blood on Satan's Claw. The accidental unearthing of Satan's earthly remains causes the children of a 17th century English village to slowly convert into a coven of devil worshippers. Blood and Lace. After her prostitute mother and her John are beaten to death while they are asleep in bed, teenage Ellie is sent to an isolated orphanage, where more murders start to occur. The House That Dripped Blood. A Scotland Yard investigator looks into 4 mysterious cases involving an unoccupied house. And lastly, Hands of the Ripper. A series of murders occur that mirror those committed by the Whitechapel Ripper. So there you have it, my top 10 of 1971. What are your favorites from this year? Did any make my list? Any that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.